at the Daily Drip with our community partners, no two look alike. The structure, the arrangement, what we're giving, what they're giving, they are all customized based on what each individual's goals are. And I think that's, an important approach.
I think it's just as important to know when you're approached with these opportunities, which ones don't make sense. I think that as we've continued, thank God, like you've said, how lucky and blessed we are to continue to grow, people start to come with what they envision, as being able to be a collaborative opportunity, but they're coming from it what starts to happen is you see people coming from it from a place of like, how do I use this to expand me, instead of I see the synergy and how we can work together. So being able to also recognize what's not the right opportunity, I think, is as important, because when you align with the wrong partner, it's not good. It really takes you sort of off course. And it matters because the people you align yourself with are representation of you and your values and what you believe. So if these people are doing or behaving in a way that doesn't synergistically align with you, it's not a good place to be.
And sometimes a strategic partnership doesn't need to necessarily be an exchange of service value. It could be a referral strategic partner. Like, hey, my service picks up where yours leaves off. Let's collaborate on how we can support each other and provide more comprehensive service to the clients or to the customers. How can we partner to make it more affordable? How can we partner to make it more seamless? How do we collaborate to bring a better experience overall? And then, we both elevate our brands as a result of that. And I think, to Romi's point, somebody that's been in the game for a long time, they may have those partners already lined up, and they may have had them lined up for years, and there's no transition happening for them. They're not in growth mode. They're not expanding. They're not rebranding. So they're comfortable. They're content. But, a startup or someone who is in growth mode, looking to open another office, looking to do more, offer other services, they are growth minded and they're going to want to have these conversations. But I think what you said is actually spot on, is there's a difference between having a strategic conversation that's collaborative versus being pitched, right? And so it's a form of sales, right? If someone thinks that they can benefit or use what you have built to better them, and there's really not much in it for you. Like we've had a lot of pitches that were kind of like showcased in a way that made it sound like it was really good for us, but it wasn't. And the only reason they didn't realize that is because they didn't take the time to learn what our goals and objectives were that year or that quarter. They assumed they knew what our eyes were on, and they were way off the mark. And so they just pretty much presented us with something to say yes or no to. And so that, I think, is the absolute wrong way to go about this. I think in today's day and age, in this marketplace that we live in, a collaborative approach is the key to not just building your network, but your business. And I think it's probably the most cost effective too.
And I think it requires such a clear and hard commitment to who and what you're about to be able to pass on things, even though, listen, we're all business owners. We're all trying to get our businesses, whether it's visibility, whatever. So it's not easy to turn away from things because, you don't want to say no to things, but at the same time, knowing what to say no to because it's actually going to not do you justice, I think is as important as being able to see the right opportunities.
I think, yeah, that's a good point. And so it brings me to the next sort of iteration of this conversation, is that I think, and I talk about this a lot, and at the Daily Drip, we talk about it a lot, about how we're in this hybrid marketplace now. We have this digital world, we have the in-person world, and so now collaborations, business development strategies, networking, everything is hybrid, right? Like we have what it looks like online, and then we have what it looks like in person. And I think it's really kind of expanded the notion of a strategic partner, what that could look like. And I actually wanted to turn it over to you, Maria, because you have launched your podcast. You've been really strategic in how you've leveraged it for networking and for your business. So talk to us a little bit about how a podcast has actually helped you build your strategic partnerships.
3 things that I look for when I am thinking about just the podcast in general or that strategy is the alignment. Is that someone that I would want to have a conversation with offline as well? Most of them are, because they're friends of mine. They're people who I need all 3 of you on the podcast. You're going to be on the podcast soon. The second is exposure. I do think about what their level of commitment will be on the other side of it, because exposure is its own currency as well. And so if they're willing to become a collaborator with me on that particular post or push it in their newsletter, if they allow me access to their email list, meaning I can kind of guest contribute, and then now it opens me up to an opportunity where I've just added another 500 to 700 people on my email list, because there's such power in that, and then bring them on board. And then the last one I think is just, I think about that just investment, and not from a financial standpoint, but just that investment in time. Like, what is that ROI for me? Like in having the podcast. For me, it is getting the message out there in a way that allows me to do it consistently, allows me to bring neat people to reinforce that messaging. And then it's kind of pivoted to now I'm working on a partnership with a company that designs digital vision boards, because the podcast is about creating the vision. And we haven't dipped too much into that aspect of it until here recently, and I've dedicated an entire month to the process. And so now as I start to shift in even my own focus of how I want the podcast shipped to be turned, those are partnerships that now is going to help me leverage how I pay for the podcast. Right. So there's things now that are coming up, whereas at first it was just a full-out investment. It was me investing in a podcast producer, someone who could kind of do the things that suck the joy out of my life.
Yes.
Like take all the creative juices and like they're gone. So it made me not even want to start a podcast for that reason. But then strategically, the plan has been one to be consistent. Most podcasts only make it to 10 episodes. So
wow, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
A majority of podcasts don't survive after 10 episodes, because it is an arduous task of getting guests together, of keeping that cadence and that consistency. So much of what I will pitch to people sometimes too is I'm in this for the long game. Like, this is, I'm 27, 28 episodes in. I'm going to be 280 episodes in. I'm still going to be doing this because this was a piece of the business of my strategic business. It's a way whenever anyone hears me speak and they say, wow, where can I find you? Go to my podcast. It's the first place. And that's a freebie. That's something that I've not asked them to spend any money. I've literally said, look me up on YouTube or anywhere where you podcast, you can find me.
You know what I think is also interesting is it's an out for you in networking to extend the relationship or take the relationship further without a sale. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say, let's sit down and talk about what you do, what I do. Could we work together? It's another thing to say, hey, you sound really interesting. I really love what you do. I'd love to have you on my podcast. Like, who's going to say no to that, right?
And then, we were talking about this last time, then that goes back up to that exposure, because then they're sharing it on LinkedIn. They're sharing it on their Instagram pages. They're copying it over, because I'm sending them all the assets. They're copying it over to their YouTube pages. So now my audience is being doubled, sometimes even tripled. I mean, I've had guests on that have had 250,000 followers. I had a guest on that had 1.9 million followers. Like, though that is exposure for me, and I look at that we're analytics, of course, I follow those too. So I see those episodes like spiking because they've accepted the collaboration. Things have really helped not necessarily benefit me. It's not like all these people signed up for my coaching or anything, but it's just that exposure and that one seed that gets planted. And we talked about that in the last episode, now creates a follower who tells another person, you need to listen to this podcast. Tells another person. It's that ripple effect that you start creating.
So you just mentioned it. So it helps your networking by expanding your brand to new audience members or new people. Outside of the endorsement or the advertising partnership that you scored through your podcasting, has any of your episodes or guests led to consulting clients? Have you had that experience yet?
Not directly, but I would say indirectly. So I actually just met with a girl yesterday who had said that by listening to my podcast, it had like fundamentally changed her life. Wow. And it was one of those moments where you're like, oh my goodness, I just do this because
I know. Is there anyone listening out there? Like, are we just doing this? Right. I wonder if we're ever going to have that feedback.
I listen to myself.
But it was one of those moments where it just validated like, wow, okay. Well, I remember my podcast producer saying, would you still want to do this if no one listened? And I said, yes, because it's helping me accomplish other strategic goals. It's helping me hone a message. It's helping me get really clear on what it is that I want. Yeah. It's helping me formulate how I would pitch to people. Not even pitch, but like how I would set up the framework for my workshops, et cetera. It might even give me ideas to build out more workshops. So yes, I would still do it even if no one listened. But then to meet this woman who is in a place and a position in her life where she's needing really clear direction, but doesn't necessarily have the means to be able to say, I want to sign up for your coaching and I want to pay you, to coach me one-on-one, but took the time to say, but I'm listening. I'm listening every week. And like your guests are helping change my perspective. Your guests are helping me change, the way I think about myself and my life and all of these things. And then now when you do your solo episodes, I'm like all in.
I love that.
Yeah.
What an interesting
important
way to network through podcasting.
And I was going to say, I think also, as a podcast, you're thinking about your audience, right? Like, how do you're bringing on people that you also know are further going to support your audience in a way that you're supporting them, right? So whoever, that's part of the strategy too. It's not even just like their exposure, but what they speak about, what they have to offer, it is more value for your audience. It's something that you want to be thinking about, right? Like, how can I continue to better serve my audience? Well, by having particular people on my podcast that support my mission and support what I'm sharing with my audience. And I think that's important.
It goes back to our last episode where we talked about networking by being in service of others. When you are building a platform, whether it's a blog, whether it's a podcast, you really are talking about how do I serve my audience and not by way of selling, right? By serving.
Podcasts are so powerful. I think the statistic, I think you guys have even shared it. I don't know at least, but I know I've heard this, but there's only going to be over, I think right now there's 424, million or maybe even billion. I'm going to butcher this, but it's going to go up by 20%. It's going to be over 500 billion listeners, active listeners or whatever. That's probably not even correct. I don't even know.
Well, it's great. Podcasting is skyrocketing because people can do it while multitasking, right? They can do it while they're exercising, do it while they're working.
And now they can watch it or they can listen to it. There's different ways to consume it even.
And I think it's more, it might be a more elegant experience for people to listen versus read, right?
People are only retaining about, less than 10% of what they read over, 90% of what they watch or hear. And so I think just in terms of a digital media, from a digital media perspective, it's effective.
Yes.
You also hear the voice of the person. There's so much that you get from connecting. And it's funny because I actually don't watch podcasts. Yeah. I think we had this conversation. I only listen to them. But even in that, there's just something where you feel like you're having a conversation with them that is sometimes just comes across different than reading.
Now, we were saying that you're listening in on a really, really good conversation. Yeah.
Great way to talk about and showcase how networking has evolved in the 21st century.